The ice water exploded over Emma's head with brutal force, 40 degrees of humiliation cascading down her face, her uniform, her dignity. Lieutenant Commander Jake Branson stood above her, empty bucket in hand, his smile venomous. "Welcome to SEAL training, Princess. Can't handle a little cold water? You don't belong here." 23 witnesses watched, some frozen in shock, some smirking. Emma stood perfectly still, water streaming from her blonde hair, pooling at her boots. Her hands didn't shake, her breath didn't catch, and in the half-second before she moved, Branson made his fatal mistake. He thought her silence meant surrender. Her palm struck his chin like a hammer. He dropped, unconscious before his body hit concrete. 1 strike, 2 seconds. Career over. His, not hers. Before we continue with Emma's story, if you appreciate real stories of courage and respect earned the hard way, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell.
Stay with us until the very end. You won't believe how this unfolds. And comment below with your city so I can see how far these stories of quiet warriors are reaching. Now, let's go back to where this all began. 3 weeks earlier, Emma had arrived at Naval Special Warfare Command's training facility in Coronado, carrying nothing but a single duffel bag and orders that told her absolutely nothing about why she was there. "Petty Officer Daniels reporting as ordered, ma'am." Captain Sarah Mitchell looked up from behind a desk, drowning in paperwork. She was 52, silver-haired, with eyes that had seen enough Navy politics to fill an ocean. "At ease, Daniels. Close the door." Emma did. The click of the latch sounded final. "Your file is interesting reading," Mitchell said. "At least the parts I'm cleared to read. 3/4 of it is redacted above my pay grade." "Yes, ma'am." Care to tell me what a DEVGRU operator is doing assigned to my equipment requisitions office? Emma's expression didn't change.
"Medical recovery assignment, ma'am. Standard protocol."
"There's nothing standard about you, Petty Officer." Mitchell pulled off her reading glasses. "I did 26 years in this Navy. I've seen cover assignments before. What I'm asking you, off the record, is whether I should be worried about whatever classified mess you're recovering from landing on my doorstep."
"No, ma'am. I just need a quiet posting for 6 months while some paperwork gets sorted. I count inventory. I process supply requests. I stay out of everyone's way."
Mitchell studied her. Emma Daniels was 26 years old and looked younger. 5'4", maybe 125 pounds soaking wet, with blonde hair regulation tight, and a face that belonged on a college campus, not a counter-terrorism unit. But her eyes had seen things that left marks. "Fine," Mitchell finally said. "But I'm telling you right now, my executive officer, Lieutenant Commander Branson, runs the training programs. He's old school. Very old school. He's going to have opinions about women in the teams."
"I'm not in the teams, ma'am. I'm in supply requisitions."
"Right." Mitchell's tone suggested she didn't believe that for a second. "Welcome to Coronado, Daniels. Try not to break anything." Lieutenant Commander Jake Branson noticed Emma on her second day. She was in the equipment cage, conducting inventory on cold water diving gear, her hands moving with mechanical efficiency through dry suits and rebreathers. He'd walked past twice before stopping. "You're the new yeoman?" Emma turned.
"Yes, sir. Petty Officer Daniels."
He looked her up and down with barely concealed disdain. "How old are you?"
26, sir."
"Jesus Christ." He shook his head. "They're sending us children now. You even know what half this equipment does?"
"Yes, sir. LAR Fee Draeger rebreather, rated for 60 meters, closed-circuit oxygen system. This particular unit needs a new CO2 scrubber canister. The seal's compromised. I've already submitted the requisition." Branson's jaw tightened. I didn't ask for a technical manual readout. You just make sure the gear's ready when my boys need it. That's your job. Counting and organizing. Think you can handle that?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Because I've got Bud/S candidates who'd kill for a cushy posting like this, and they actually deserve it. He turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. Don't go getting ideas about what you see here. The teams are for warriors, real operators, not administrative clerks playing dress-up. Clear? Crystal clear, sir.
After he left, Emma stood perfectly still for 10 seconds. Then she went back to checking equipment seals, her face showing nothing, her hands steady as stone.
The harassment started small. Branson would route all his equipment requests through her, then complain when she processed them exactly according to regulation. He'd schedule mandatory inventory checks at 0400 hours. He'd assign her to reorganize entire storage facilities, then criticize the organization system she'd implemented. "This is wrong," he'd say, pointing at perfectly categorized equipment. "I want everything resorted by date of manufacture, not by operational category." "Sir, Regulation OPNAV Inst 4790.2b specifies..." "I don't care what the regulation says. I care what I'm telling you to do. Are we going to have a problem, Petty Officer?" "No, sir."
She'd redo it. Perfectly. Without complaint. The other staff noticed. Chief Warrant Officer Marcus Reed, who ran the dive training program, pulled her aside one morning. "Kid, you don't have to take his shit. File a complaint."
"It's fine, Chief."
"It's not fine. Branson's had issues before.
2 female instructors transferred out last year because of him. Captain Mitchell would back you up." Emma looked at him with those 2 old eyes.
"I appreciate that, Chief, but I'm just here to do a job. 6 months, then I'm gone. I don't need to make waves." 6 months is a long time to be someone's punching bag. "I've survived worse." Something in how she said it made Reed pause. He'd done 3 tours in Afghanistan, trained SEALs for 15 years, and he recognized that particular flatness of tone. It was the sound of someone who'd seen the elephant and come back different. "All right," he said quietly. "But my door's open if you change your mind." The breaking point came during a tactical briefing 3 weeks into her assignment. Branson was presenting a cold water training evolution to a room full of instructors and senior candidates. Emma was there only because Mitchell had insisted all staff attend operational briefings, even just the supply clerk. "We'll insert the candidates here," Branson said, tapping a map of the coastal waters. "At 0600 hours. Water temperature will be approximately 52 degrees. They'll have standard wetsuits, no dry suits. The evolution is designed to test cold water endurance and mental fortitude. Extraction point is here, 2 miles north. Estimated time in water, 4 hours." Emma's hand went up. Branson stopped mid-sentence, his face darkening. "Yes, Petty Officer?" "Sir, I have a question about the equipment loadout." "The equipment is not your concern in this briefing." "With respect, sir, it is. You're sending candidates into 52-degree water in 7mm wetsuits for 4 hours.
That's a recipe for severe hypothermia." The room went quiet. Branson's smile was dangerous.
"Is that your professional opinion as a supply clerk?"
"It's my professional opinion as someone who's read the physiological studies. In water that temperature, with that exposure time, core body temperature will drop below 95 degrees. That's clinical hypothermia. Cognitive function degrades, motor control fails. You're not testing mental fortitude. You're risking lives."
"These are SEAL candidates. They're supposed to be uncomfortable."
"There's a difference between uncomfortable and medically dangerous, sir. Additionally, you have no fast response warming protocol listed.
If someone goes into severe hypothermia, extraction time alone could be fatal. Branson walked slowly toward where she sat in the back row. Let me explain something to you, sweetheart. I've been training SEALs since before you could spell Navy. I know exactly what these men can handle. What I don't need is some paper pusher who's never spent a day in combat conditions telling me how to do my job. I'm not telling you how to do your job, sir. I'm telling you the equipment parameters don't match the operational requirements. No, what you're doing is embarrassing yourself in front of real operators. He gestured at the room. These men have earned the right to have opinions on training. You've earned the right to count boxes. Stay in your lane. Emma stood up. She was a foot shorter than Branson, but something in how she carried herself made the size difference irrelevant. My lane, sir, is ensuring this command doesn't lose candidates to preventable medical emergencies because someone confused toughness with stupidity. The room sucked in a collective breath. Branson's face went purple. Get out. Sir, I said, get out. And since you clearly have too much free time to attend briefings that don't concern you, report to the dive equipment storage facility. I want every single piece of gear re-inventoried, inspected, and cataloged. You have until 2,000 hours tonight. That's 12 hours, Petty Officer. Think you can count that high? Emma's voice was perfectly level. Yes, sir. She walked out. Behind her, she heard Chief Reed start to speak up, and she heard Branson cut him off. Anyone else want to question my training protocols? Silence. The dive equipment storage facility was a massive concrete building that smelled of neoprene and salt water. Emma had already inventoried it twice. She knew exactly what was in every bin, on every shelf, in every locker. She started again anyway. 4 hours in, her hands moving through equipment with machine-like precision, she heard the door open. She didn't look up. Working hard, I see. It was Branson. And he wasn't alone. She could hear at least 3 other sets of footsteps. She straightened and turned. Branson stood flanked by 2 of his senior instructors, Lieutenant Marcus Webb and Chief Petty Officer Danny Cortez, along with 4 Bud/S candidates who looked uncertain about why they were there. Branson was carrying a large gray bucket. You know what the problem is with your generation? He said conversationally, walking toward her. You all think you deserve respect just for showing up. You think putting on a uniform makes you a warrior. I never said that, sir. No, but you implied it. Standing up in my briefing, questioning my decisions, making me look bad in front of my men. He stopped 10 feet away. Out here, respect is earned. It's paid for in sweat and blood and suffering. You understand that concept? I do, sir. Really? Because I don't think you do. I think you've spent your entire Navy career in air-conditioned offices, filing paperwork, playing at being a sailor. I think you have no concept of what real operators endure. Emma said nothing, but her eyes tracked the bucket. See, in BUD/S, we have a tradition, Branson continued. When someone gets too big for their britches, when they forget their place, we remind them what cold really feels like. We call it surf torture, hours in the ocean, hypothermia setting in, finding out what you're really made of. He lifted the bucket. But since you're not a candidate, I thought I'd bring the ocean to you. Sir, I don't think, Chief Cortez started. Did I ask you to think, Chief? No, sir, but then stand there and watch. Everyone here is going to learn an important lesson about respect. Emma's voice cut through. Lieutenant Commander, this is assault. You understand that? Assault? Branson laughed. This is training, Petty Officer. This is me teaching you what SEAL culture really means. If you can't handle a little cold water,
You definitely don't belong anywhere near this command. He stepped closer. The bucket sloshed. Emma could see ice floating in the water. One of the candidates, a kid who couldn't have been more than 22, spoke up. "Sir, maybe we should—" "Shut your mouth, candidate. You don't have opinions yet. You haven't earned them." Branson raised the bucket. "Last chance, Daniels. Apologize for questioning me in that briefing. Admit you don't know what the hell you're talking about, and we'll forget this whole thing." Emma looked at him. Really looked at him, and in that moment, she made a calculation. She could back down, apologize, spend 6 more months being invisible. Or she could do what every fiber of her training had taught her: never let a threat go unanswered. "No, sir," she said quietly. Branson's smile turned cruel. "Wrong answer." He upended the bucket. The shock was instantaneous and total. 40-degree salt water mixed with ice crashed over her head, drenching her in a heartbeat. It soaked through her uniform, plastered her hair to her skull, and streamed down her face in rivulets that turned immediately freezing. The cold was a physical violation, a stunning assault that reached bone deep. For exactly 3 seconds, she stood perfectly still. Water dripped from her chin. Her uniform clung to her frame. Ice chunks slid off her shoulders and hit the concrete floor with small, wet sounds. The witnesses stood frozen, some shocked, some uncomfortable, Branson triumphant. Then Emma moved. It happened faster than thought. Her left hand came up, fingers splayed, and touched the back of Branson's neck, not grabbing, just steadying, the way you might place a hand on a melon before cutting it. Her right hand, palm open, drove forward in a short, perfectly controlled arc. The palm heel strike caught Branson square on the point of his chin. The angle was surgical. The force was calculated. The result was inevitable. Branson's head snapped back. His eyes rolled up, showing white. His knees buckled, and all 210 pounds of him dropped like a building in controlled demolition. He hit the concrete floor with a sound that made everyone wince, a heavy, final thud. He was unconscious before his shoulder blades touched ground. Absolute silence. Emma stood over him, water still dripping from her hair, her hand still extended in the follow-through position. Then she slowly lowered her arm, flexed her fingers once, and looked at the 6 stunned men staring at her. Chief Cortez found his voice first. "Holy shit." Lieutenant Webb was already moving, dropping to one knee beside Branson, checking his pulse. "He's out cold. Jaw's definitely broken." "Jesus Christ, Daniels, what the hell did you just do?" Emma's voice was perfectly calm. "He assaulted me. I defended myself." "Defended yourself? You knocked out a superior officer." "After he committed battery against me in front of 6 witnesses. Self-defense is clearly protected under UCMJ Article 916. One of the candidates, his face pale, stammered, "She's right. He dumped water on her first. We all saw it." "Shut up," Webb snapped. Then to Emma, "You're under arrest. You understand that? You just ended your career." "Possibly," Emma said. "But he'll think twice before he humiliates someone again. Chief, I recommend you get Lieutenant Commander Branson to medical. That's a mandibular fracture, probably hairline. He'll need imaging and possible surgical stabilization. And someone should check for concussion protocol." Cortez stared at her. "How do you know?" "Because I know how to throw a palm strike, and I know exactly what happens when you do it correctly." Emma turned and walked toward the door. "I'll be in my quarters if anyone needs me." "You can tell Captain Mitchell I'll cooperate fully with whatever investigation she wants to run." "Where do you think you're going?" Webb shouted. Emma stopped at the door and looked back at Branson's unconscious form.
at the spreading pool of ice water, at the men who'd stood there and let it happen. "To change into a dry uniform," she said. "Unless that's against regulations too." She walked out into the California sunshine, leaving 6 men and 1 unconscious officer behind her. And for the first time in 3 weeks, something like a smile touched the corner of her mouth. It lasted exactly 2 seconds. Then the weight of what she'd just done, what she'd just sacrificed, what she'd just revealed, settled onto her shoulders like lead.
She'd blown her cover for a moment of pride, and she had absolutely no idea what came next. The holding cell wasn't actually a cell. It was a converted storage room in the administrative building with a cot, a toilet, and a door that locked from the outside. Emma sat on the edge of the cot, her uniform finally dry, and waited. She'd been waiting for 6 hours. The first visitor was Captain Mitchell. The door opened without ceremony. Mitchell stepped inside, closed it behind her, and stood there for a long moment, just looking at Emma with an expression that was equal parts fury and fascination. "Explain," she said finally. "He dumped a bucket of ice water on me in front of witnesses. I defended myself. You broke his jaw. Fractured it. There's a difference." Mitchell's eyes narrowed. "This isn't funny, petty officer." "I'm not laughing, ma'am." Emma met her gaze. "He's been harassing me for 3 weeks. Chief Reed can confirm that." Today, he decided to escalate from verbal abuse to physical assault. I responded with the minimum force necessary to end the threat. "Minimum force? He's in the hospital with a concussion and a mandibular fracture that's going to require surgical pins. The doc says you hit him with the force of a professional fighter." "I know how to throw a palm strike, ma'am. It's basic hand-to-hand combat. Any SEAL could do the same." "You're not a SEAL. You're a yeoman." The silence that followed was heavy with things unsaid. Mitchell pulled a tablet from under her arm and tapped the screen. "I spent the last 4 hours on the phone with people whose names I'm not cleared to know, trying to access your actual service record. You want to know what I learned?" "I'm sure you'll tell me, ma'am." "I learned that Petty Officer First Class Emma Daniels officially doesn't exist. The woman with your name and service number has a file that's 90% redacted. The parts I can read say you joined the Navy at 18, went through basic, got assigned to administrative duties, and have been pushing paper ever since. Unremarkable. Boring. Safe." "Yes, ma'am." "Except that's not true, is it? Because boring paper pushers don't move like you moved. They don't calculate strike angles. They don't casually diagnose mandibular fractures." Mitchell leaned forward. "One of the candidates who witnessed what happened? His father is a Marine colonel. The kid called him tonight, freaked out, described what he saw. The colonel called me, personally. You know what he said?" Emma waited. "He said the technique you used is taught at exactly one place, the Special Operations Combatives course at Fort Bragg. And the only Navy personnel who go through that course are DevGru operators." Mitchell's voice dropped. "So I'm going to ask you one more time, and I need the truth. Who the hell are you?" Emma looked at her hands. They were steady. They were always steady. "I'm someone who's supposed to be invisible for 6 more months, ma'am. That's all I can tell you." "That's not good enough." "It's going to have to be, because anything else is classified above your clearance. You said so yourself." Mitchell's jaw clenched. "This is my command. I have a right to know if—" The door burst open. A young lieutenant stood there, breathing hard. "Ma'am, we have a situation. Training accident. Maritime exercise." Mitchell spun. "What happened?" "RHIB capsized during cold water drills. 8 candidates in the water. We've lost radio contact." "Where's the safety boat?" "Trying to reach them, but the swells are running 12 feet and visibility is near 0.
Fog rolled in out of nowhere. They can't find them. Emma was on her feet. What's the water temperature? The lieutenant blinked at her, surprised she'd spoken. 51 degrees. Why, how long have they been in the water? 47 minutes. Jesus Christ. Emma turned to Mitchell. Ma'am, in water that temperature, they have maybe 30 more minutes before severe hypothermia sets in. If the safety boat can't navigate in the fog— I didn't ask for your input, petty officer. Ma'am, with respect, you don't have time for pride. Those kids are dying. Mitchell's face hardened. Lieutenant Harris, get me Commander Peterson at Coast Guard Station San Diego. Tell them we need immediate helicopter support. Already tried, ma'am. They're grounded. The fog's too thick, and it's getting worse. They said they can't launch until visibility improves. How long? Weather Service says at least 3 hours. The room went silent. Everyone there understood the math. 3 hours was a death sentence. Mitchell's hands clenched into fists. Get every available boat in the water. Expand the search grid. And someone find me Branson's training plans. I need to know exactly where they were supposed to be. Ma'am, Emma said quietly, Branson's in the hospital. And even if he wasn't, sending more boats into zero visibility conditions without proper equipment just gives you more casualties. Then what do you suggest? Mitchell snapped. Because right now, I'm looking at 8 dead candidates and a congressional investigation that's going to end my career and shut down this command. So unless you have a better idea, Daniels, shut your mouth and let me— I can find them. The words hung in the air. Mitchell stared at her. What did you say? I can find them, but I need 3 things. Full operational authority, access to the experimental maritime equipment in Locker 9 Delta, and I pick my team. You're under arrest for assaulting a superior officer. And 8 kids are dying in the Pacific. Which problem matters more right now, ma'am? Lieutenant Harris looked between them, his face pale. Captain, we don't have time to— I know we don't have time! Mitchell's voice cracked. Then she took a breath and looked at Emma with something that might have been desperation. If I do this, if I give you what you're asking, and those candidates die anyway, I'm finished. We both are. They won't die. How can you possibly know that? Because I've done this before. I've done it in worse conditions, with worse odds. And I brought everyone home. Emma's voice carried absolute certainty. But we're wasting time debating, ma'am. Every second we stand here talking is a second closer to hypothermic cardiac arrest. Mitchell turned to Harris. What's in Locker 9 Delta? I don't know, ma'am. It's been sealed since before I got here. Branson had the only key. Then break the damn lock. Mitchell looked back at Emma. You said you pick your team. Who do you want? The 2 instructors who were with Branson, Webb and Cortez, and the 4 candidates who witnessed the incident. Those are the last people who'd want to help you. Exactly. They owe me nothing. Which means if they follow my orders, it's because they trust my competence, not because they like me. And trust is what keeps people alive. Mitchell studied her for 5 more seconds. Then she made her decision. Lieutenant Harris, release Petty Officer Daniels from confinement and take her to Locker 9 Delta. Break the lock if you have to. Get her whatever she needs. She looked at Emma. You have operational authority as of right now. But if this goes wrong, if even one of those candidates dies, you'll face a court-martial that'll make the assault charge look like a parking ticket. Clear? Clear, ma'am. Then move. Locker 9 Delta was in the secure equipment building, behind 3 separate locked doors. By the time Emma and Harris reached it, a maintenance crew had already cut through the external padlock with bolt cutters. Inside was equipment Emma recognized immediately. Some of it she'd used, some of it she'd helped design. What the hell is all this? Harris breathed. Emma didn't answer. She was already pulling on a thermal wetsuit that looked nothing like standard Navy issue. It was lighter, more flexible, with integrated heating elements powered by a compact battery pack. Get me Webb, Cortez, and those 4 candidates, now. And I need the RHIB that's equipped with the FLIR system. The what? Forward-looking infrared. It sees heat signatures through fog. Branson requisitioned it 8 months ago. It should be in the boat bay. Harris stared at her. How do you know what Branson requisitioned? Because I process all the equipment requests, Lieutenant. That's my job, remember? She pulled on the wetsuit's hood. Clock's ticking. Move. They assembled in the boat bay 12 minutes later. Webb and Cortez looked furious. The 4 candidates looked terrified, whether of the rescue mission or of Emma herself she couldn't tell. Webb spoke first. Captain Mitchell ordered us to report to you. Doesn't mean I'm taking orders from someone who assaulted— 8 candidates are dying in the water, Emma cut him off. You can hate me later. Right now, strip down and put these on. She tossed each of them a thermal wetsuit. Cortez caught his, but didn't move. These aren't standard issue. No, they're better. They'll keep you alive in 50-degree water for 6 hours instead of 90 minutes. Put them on or stay here. I don't care which. But decide in the next 30 seconds, because that's all the time we have. One of the candidates, a lean kid with Arizona in his accent, started stripping immediately. I'm going. Those are my classmates out there. The other 3 followed his lead. Webb and Cortez exchanged a look. Then, reluctantly, they started changing. While you're doing that, Emma continued, listen carefully because I'm only saying this once. In the water, visibility is 0. Sound travels wrong. Your sense of direction will fail. The only thing keeping you alive is following orders exactly as I give them. No improvising, no second-guessing, no heroics. Clear? You want us to follow your orders? Webb's voice was acidic. After what you did to Branson? Emma walked up to him. Even with him half-dressed, she had to look up to meet his eyes. But the force of her presence made him step back. Branson dumped ice water on me to humiliate me. I responded. You can judge that however you want. But those kids out there didn't do anything except follow his training plan. The same plan I warned him was dangerous in this morning's briefing. The same plan you all sat there and said nothing about. So you can stand here and debate military justice, or you can help me save lives. Which is it going to be, Lieutenant? Webb's face flushed, but he didn't have an answer. Emma turned to the group. We launch in 5 minutes. Cortez, you're on navigation. Webb, you handle comms. Arizona, what's your name? Candidate Martinez, ma'am. Martinez, you're on the thermal scanner. I'll teach you how to read it on the way. The rest of you are on rescue assist. We find them, we get them out, we get them warm. Questions? Yeah, Cortez said. How are you planning to find them when the Coast Guard can't? Emma pulled a handheld device from the equipment locker. It looked like a modified sonar unit. This is a prototype thermal tracker. It reads water temperature differentials. 8 men in the water create a heat signature, even in fog. It's not perfect, but it's all we have. You're betting their lives on a prototype? No, Chief. I'm betting their lives on my ability to use it. There's a difference. She checked her watch. 4 minutes. Finish getting ready. The RHIB cut through the fog like a knife through silk. Visibility was less than 10 feet. The world had disappeared, replaced by a gray void that pressed in from all sides. Emma stood at the bow, the thermal tracker in her hands, her eyes locked on its screen. Martinez crouched beside her, watching over her shoulder. I don't see anything, he whispered. You won't until we're close. The fog interferes with the signal. We're navigating by probability right now. Probability? Branson's training plan had them moving north-northwest. Current runs south-southeast at about 1.3 knots. Wind's been pushing west. Factor in drift time and cold water panic swimming, and they should be somewhere in a 300-meter radius of this position. Martinez looked at her with something like awe. You calculated all that in your head? It's just math, Martinez. Survival is always just math. She adjusted a dial on the tracker. Physics doesn't care about your feelings.
Neither does the ocean. Behind them, Webb was on the radio. Surge Command, this is Rescue 1. We're at grid coordinates Charlie 7. No visual contact. Continuing search pattern. The radio crackled back. Rescue 1, Coast Guard is still reporting 0 visibility. How are you navigating? Webb looked at Emma. She didn't look back. Her focus was absolute. We have specialized equipment, Command. What kind of specialized equipment? Emma's voice cut through without her turning around. Tell them we're using thermal imaging and dead reckoning, and tell them to clear the channel. We need to listen for voice contact. Webb's jaw clenched, but he relayed the message. They moved through the fog in expanding circles, the RHIB's engine a low growl, everyone straining to hear anything over the water. Then Martinez grabbed Emma's arm. There, on the screen. Is that? Emma was already moving. Cortez, heading 045, 80 meters. Cut the engine when I say. The boat turned. The fog swallowed them deeper. 50 meters. 30. Cut it now! The engine died. In the sudden silence, they heard it. A voice, weak and desperate, calling out. Help! Someone! We're here! Sound off! Emma shouted into the fog. How many? 8. All 8! But Johnson's not responding. I think he's... Hold on. We're coming to you. Keep talking so we can track your voice. She turned to the team. Webb, Cortez, prep the rescue basket. Martinez, you're going in the water with me. The rest of you get ready to haul them up fast. Hypothermia sets in hard once they stop swimming. Move! They moved. Emma grabbed Martinez by the shoulder as he pulled on a safety harness. Stay close to me in the water. We bring them to the boat one at a time. Worst cases first. You panic, you die. You understand? Yes, ma'am. Good. Then let's go fishing. She went over the side into the freezing water, and Martinez followed. And somewhere in the gray void ahead, 8 voices called out to them like prayers. The cold hit like a fist to the chest. Emma's thermal suit regulated the worst of it, but 51-degree water still found ways to hurt. She kicked hard, following the sound of voices that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere in the fog. Keep talking, she shouted. We're tracking your position. Here, we're over here. Johnson's not moving. He's just floating. Emma's stroke was efficient, powerful. Martinez struggled to keep pace beside her. 20 meters, 15. Then she saw them. 8 dark shapes bobbing in the swell, their faces pale as death. Martinez, take the 3 on the left. Get them to the boat. I've got Johnson. But that's an order, candidate. He swam toward the others. Emma reached Johnson in 4 strokes. The kid was face up, his eyes half closed, his lips blue. She grabbed his vest, felt for a pulse. Thread thin, maybe 40 beats per minute. Johnson, can you hear me? Nothing. His eyes didn't focus. Webb, Emma shouted toward where the boat should be. I need the rescue basket starboard side, now, and prep the warming blankets. I'm bringing you a critical. She heard the splash of the basket hitting water. She kicked toward the sound, dragging Johnson, his dead weight fighting her with every stroke. The fog was so thick she couldn't see the boat until she was 5 feet from it. Cortez was leaning over the side. Jesus Christ, is he? He's alive. Barely. Get him up. They hauled Johnson into the basket.
Emma grabbed the side of the boat and pulled herself halfway up. His core temp is probably 88, maybe lower. Severe hypothermia. We need to rewarm him slowly or his heart will stop. Where are the blankets? Right here, one of the candidates said, holding up a silver thermal wrap. Not those, the active warming ones.
The ones with the battery packs, from the equipment locker. The candidate stared at her. I don't know what... Emma was over the rail in one smooth motion, water streaming from her suit. She pushed past him, grabbed a pack from the specialized gear, and ripped it open. Inside were blankets with embedded heating elements. She wrapped Johnson in 3 layers, activated the battery packs, and pressed 2 fingers to his throat. His pulse was erratic, skipping beats. He's going into VFib, she said. Where's the AED? The what? Webb asked. The automated external defibrillator. It should be in the medical kit. We don't have... Yes, you do. Locker 9 Delta. I packed it myself. Emma was already moving, finding the kit, ripping it open. She pulled out the AED, powered it on, and ripped open Johnson's wetsuit. Everyone back! Don't touch him! She placed the paddles on his bare chest. The machine analyzed his rhythm. Shock advised, the automated voice said. Clear! Johnson's body jerked. The machine analyzed again. Shock advised. Clear! Another jolt. This time Johnson gasped, his eyes flying open. His pulse steadied. Emma checked his airway, his breathing, his circulation. That's it. Stay with me, Johnson. You're okay. You're going to be okay. She looked up. Martinez was in the water with 3 candidates, guiding them to the boat. Webb and Cortez were hauling them up. How many more? Emma shouted down to Martinez. 4, but one of them can barely hold on. I need help. Emma didn't hesitate. She went back over the side. The second candidate she reached was a kid named Porter. His teeth were chattering so hard she thought they'd shatter. Can't feel my legs. That's okay, I've got you. Just hold on to me. She grabbed his vest and started swimming back. Porter tried to help, but his kicks were weak, uncoordinated. Halfway to the boat, he started to panic. I can't do this. I'm gonna drown. No, you're not. Look at me, Porter. Look at my eyes. He did. They were calm, steady, absolutely certain. You're not going to drown because I won't let you, you understand? I've pulled people out of worse water than this. You're just cargo right now. Relax and let me work. Something in her voice cut through his panic. He stopped fighting. She got him to the boat. Martinez was right behind her with another candidate. They worked in rhythm. Emma and Martinez in the water, Webb and Cortez on the boat, hauling bodies up and getting them wrapped and warm. 6 candidates recovered. 7. The 8th was 30 meters away and sinking. Emma saw it happen. The kid's head dipped below the surface once, twice, then disappeared. Man down, she shouted. She sucked in air and dove. The water below the surface was darker, colder, disorienting. She kicked down, her hands sweeping in wide arcs, searching. Her lungs started to burn. 5 seconds. 10. 15. Her fingers brushed fabric. She grabbed, pulled, kicked for the surface. They broke through together. The candidate, name tag said Chen, was unconscious, water streaming from his mouth. Martinez, help me! Together they got Chen to the boat. Cortez and Webb pulled him up. Emma was right behind him, her lungs heaving. Chen wasn't breathing. On his back, Emma commanded. She tilted his head, checked his airway, and started chest compressions. 30 hard, fast pumps. She bent down, sealed her mouth over his, and gave 2 rescue breaths. Nothing. 30 more compressions. 2 more breaths. Chen's chest heaved. Water spewed from his mouth. He coughed, gasped, and started breathing. Emma sat back on her heels, her own breathing ragged. "Get him wrapped. Keep his airway clear." Webb was staring at her with something that looked like shock. "Where the hell did you learn to do that?" "Every sailor learns CPR, Lieutenant. It's not complicated."
That wasn't just CPR. That was combat trauma medicine. That was... He stopped. His eyes dropped to Emma's forearm. Her wetsuit sleeve had rolled up during the compressions. Her tattoo was visible. It was intricate, unmistakable. A trident. But not the regular Navy SEAL trident. This one had modifications. A skull integrated into the eagle's head, wings that looked more like a bird of prey than an eagle, and beneath it, block letters. Devgru. Below that, smaller, Ghost. Webb's face went white. "Oh my God." Cortez saw it too. That can't be." Martinez, dripping wet and exhausted, looked at the tattoo, then at Emma's face. "What's DEVGRU?" "Naval Special Warfare Development Group," Webb said quietly. "SEAL Team 6. The people who killed bin Laden. The most elite counterterrorism unit in the world." His voice was barely audible. "And she's one of them." Emma pulled her sleeve down. "Was. Past tense. Now can we focus on getting these kids back to base before we have to do more CPR?" "You're a DEVGRU operator," Cortez said, still processing. "A Tier 1 asset. And you've been processing our supply requisitions for 3 weeks. Somebody has to count the bullets, Chief." "Don't." Webb's voice was sharp. "Don't deflect. That call sign, Ghost. I've heard that name. My last deployment, Iraq, 2019. There was a hostage rescue that went bad. American journalist and 2 aid workers held by an Al-Qaeda cell in Mosul. The rescue team got ambushed. 3 operators went down, medic included. Mission should have been aborted. But someone stayed. 1 operator. Treated the wounded under fire, got the hostages out, called in air support, and held the position for 40 minutes against 30 insurgents. Alone. He stared at Emma. They called her the Ghost because she was supposed to be dead 5 times over. But she kept coming, kept fighting. Saved 11 lives that night. Got a Navy Cross that she wasn't allowed to accept publicly because her entire unit is classified. His voice dropped to a whisper. "That was you." Emma met his eyes. "Does it matter?" "Are you kidding me? Does it—" Webb stopped. He looked at Johnson, wrapped in warming blankets and breathing steadily. At Chen, coughing up seawater, but alive. At the other 6 candidates, all rescued from what should have been a mass casualty incident. "It matters," he said quietly. "It matters because I laughed when Branson humiliated you. I stood there and did nothing. And you're the most qualified person on this entire base." "Second most qualified," Emma corrected. "Captain Mitchell has more command experience." "Stop it. Stop deflecting and just—" Webb's voice broke. "You could have let us fail. After what Branson did. After what we all let him do. You could have sat in that cell and let those kids die, and nobody would have blamed you. But you didn't. They're candidates. They didn't do anything to me." "That's not the point." "Then what is the point, Lieutenant?" Webb struggled for words. Finally, he said, "The point is that I've been a SEAL for 12 years. I've trained hundreds of candidates. I've served with some of the best operators in the world. And in 20 minutes, I just watched you do things I didn't think were possible. Not the physical stuff, though that was impressive enough. But the way you made decisions under pressure, The way you calculated angles and currents in your head. The way you knew exactly what Johnson needed before his heart stopped. He shook his head. Branson called you weak. He said you didn't belong here. And you're probably the strongest person on this entire base. Silence. The fog pressed in around them. The boat rocked gently. Martinez spoke up, his voice young and uncertain. "Ma'am, can I ask you something?" Emma looked at him.
What? Why'd you let him do it? Why didn't you just tell him who you were? One word about DevGru and Branson would have backed down. He would have left you alone. Because being invisible was my mission, Martinez. I was ordered to maintain a low profile. That meant enduring the harassment without revealing my background. She checked Johnson's pulse again, stronger now, steadier. Mission parameters changed when candidates' lives were at risk. Priorities shifted. So breaking his jaw was part of the mission? No, that was personal. And I'll pay for it. But it was worth it. Cortez, who'd been silent, finally spoke. You said was DevGru. Why aren't you still with them? Emma's jaw tightened. I took a bullet in Somalia. Hostage rescue. The round hit my shoulder, shattered the clavicle, nicked my subclavian artery. I should have bled out in 90 seconds. But my team medic kept me alive long enough for extraction. Spent 6 months in recovery. By the time I was cleared for duty, the docs said my shoulder wouldn't hold up to operational stress. So they retired me from active combat and stuck me in a desk job. Her voice was flat, clinical. Standard protocol for injured Tier 1 assets. Keep us in the Navy where we can be monitored, but away from the public where we might accidentally reveal classified information. Hence, supply requisitions at SEAL Training Command. That's bullshit, Martinez said. Your shoulder seemed fine when you pulled Chen out of the water. Physical therapy works wonders, candidate, but the Navy doesn't reverse medical discharges based on personal improvement. They base them on liability assessments. And I'm apparently a liability. Webb looked at her with something like understanding. That's why you didn't fight back against Branson's harassment. You couldn't risk another incident that might get you fully discharged. Correct. Until today. Until today, Emma agreed. When the choice became tolerating abuse or saving lives, the math changed. The radio crackled. Rescue 1, this is Search Command. What's your status? Cortez grabbed the mic. Search Command, we have all 8 candidates recovered. 1 critical, 1 serious, 6 stable. Requesting immediate medical support on arrival. There was a pause. Then Captain Mitchell's voice came through, tight, with barely controlled emotion. Copy that, Rescue 1. Medical team standing by. Good work. Another pause. All of you. Emma picked up the mic. Search Command, this is Daniels. Estimated time to dock is 12 minutes. Have trauma team ready with active rewarming stations and IV saline. Johnson's going to need cardiac monitoring for at least 6 hours. Understood. Mitchell's voice softened. Emma? Yes, ma'am? We'll talk when you get back. But for the record, I don't give a damn about your file anymore. I only care about what I just witnessed. The radio went dead. Webb looked at Emma. You realize what this means, right? You just blew your cover in front of 6 candidates, 2 instructors, and half of command staff. Whatever invisible mission you were on, it's over. Emma pulled off her thermal hood. Her hair was plastered to her head, and for the first time since the rescue began, she looked tired. I know. Was it worth it? She looked at the 8 shivering candidates wrapped in warming blankets, their lips still blue, but their eyes alive with gratitude and shock. Ask me after the court-martial, she said. Cortez, take us home. They pulled into the dock 14 minutes later. The entire command was waiting, medical personnel, instructors, support staff, and candidates from 3 different training classes.
News had spread. Everyone wanted to see the supply clerk who'd just done the impossible. As the boat tied up, Emma helped carry Johnson on a stretcher to the waiting ambulance. The medical team took over, their movements practiced and efficient. She stepped back and found herself face to face with Captain Mitchell. "Report," Mitchell said. "All 8 candidates recovered. Johnson required cardiac intervention, successful defibrillation. Chen required CPR and airway management, both stable. The others are hypothermic but responsive. No casualties." "And you?" "Ready for arrest, ma'am." Mitchell stared at her. Then, slowly, deliberately, she came to attention and rendered the sharpest, most perfect salute Emma had ever received. Behind her, one by one, every sailor on that dock did the same. Webb,
Cortez, Martinez, and the other 3 candidates from Emma's rescue team, the medical personnel, the instructors, even the candidates who'd never met her, who only knew that someone had gone into impossible water and brought their classmates back alive. Emma stood frozen. She wasn't supposed to be saluted. She was under arrest. This violated every protocol. But Mitchell didn't drop her hand. "Petty Officer Daniels," Mitchell said, her voice carrying across the silent dock. "On behalf of Naval Special Warfare Command, I want to thank you for your service, your courage, and your sacrifice. What you did tonight saved 8 lives. What you've endured over the past 3 weeks with dignity and professionalism represents the highest ideals of the naval service." She finally dropped her salute. Emma, trained reflexes taking over, returned it. The moment held. Then Mitchell said quietly, "Now let's go deal with the paperwork shitstorm you just created. Because we have a lot to talk about." As they walked toward the command building, Emma caught sight of an ambulance pulling away, with Branson visible through the back window, his jaw wired shut, watching the scene unfold. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second. He looked away first. Mitchell's office was cramped and utilitarian, dominated by a metal desk covered in reports and a window overlooking the training grounds. Emma stood at attention, still wearing her damp thermal suit, water pooling at her feet. Mitchell closed the door and didn't sit down. "You know what's happening right now? I've got the Naval Special Warfare Commander on hold, the JAG office demanding explanations, and a formal assault complaint from Lieutenant Commander Branson that I'm legally obligated to investigate. And somehow, in the middle of all that, you just became the most talked about sailor in Coronado." "I understand, ma'am." "Do you? Because I'm not sure you understand the shitstorm that's about to land on both our heads." Mitchell paced to the window. The moment those candidates start talking, and they will talk, your identity becomes public knowledge. DevGru operators are supposed to be ghosts. That's the whole point. And you just performed a rescue mission in front of half my command staff. "I had no choice, ma'am. The mission parameters, I know what the mission parameters were. I'm the one who gave you operational authority." Mitchell turned back. "What I need to know is what happens next. Because I've got 8 saved lives on one hand and a violated security protocol on the other. And somewhere in Washington, people whose names I'll never know are deciding whether to thank you or bury you." The phone on Mitchell's desk rang. She looked at it, then at Emma. "That's probably them now." She picked up. "Captain Mitchell?" Her face went carefully neutral. "Yes, sir. She's right here." She held out the phone. "It's for you. Vice Admiral Hendricks, NAB Spec War Commander." Emma took the phone. "Petty Officer Daniels." The voice on the other end was gravelly, authoritative. "I've been reading the preliminary reports from tonight's incident. Is it true you performed a cold water rescue of 8 hypothermic candidates using experimental equipment and achieved a 0 casualty outcome?" "Yes, sir." "And is it also true that you're currently facing assault charges for striking a superior officer?" "Yes, sir." There was a pause. Tell me what happened with Lieutenant Commander Branson. Your version. Emma relayed the events, the bucket of ice water, the witnesses, the palm strike. She kept her voice clinical, factual. When she finished, Hendricks was silent for a long moment. 6 witnesses confirm your account, including 2 instructors who are now claiming they should have intervened but didn't. Branson's filing a complaint anyway, says you used excessive force. Sir, I used the minimum force necessary to neutralize an ongoing assault. The strike was controlled and precise. If I'd wanted to use excessive force, Lieutenant Commander Branson would be intubated right now, not complaining about his jaw. Hendricks made a sound that might have been a laugh. You've got steel in you, Daniels. I'll give you that. His tone shifted. Here's the situation. Your cover is blown. 6 candidates, 2 instructors, medical staff, and half of Mitchell's command now know you're DevGru. The OPSEC failure alone should end your career. You understand that? Yes, sir. But here's the problem with ending your career. Those 8 candidates you pulled out of the water? One of them is Senator Patterson's nephew. Another is the son of a Marine 3-star general. The rest have families who are about to hear that their sons survived because a supply clerk turned out to be one of the most elite operators in naval special warfare. He paused. How do I court-martial the woman who just saved a senator's nephew from drowning? Emma said nothing. I'll tell you how. I don't. The optics are impossible. But I can't ignore the assault charge either. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to give me a full incident report. Captain Mitchell is going to conduct an investigation, and we're going to let the facts speak for themselves. If the investigation shows Branson committed assault first, your response becomes legally justified self-defense. Case closed. And if it doesn't, sir? Then you'll face a court-martial, and I'll lose the best maritime rescue operator I've seen in 20 years. But I don't think that's how this plays out. Hendricks's voice softened slightly. Off the record, Daniels? Branson's had complaints before. 3 separate incidents of gender-based harassment. None of them stuck because the women involved transferred out rather than fight it. But this time he picked on someone who hits back, and I'm not inclined to protect officers who humiliate their subordinates for sport. What about my assignment, sir? My cover's compromised. Your cover was bullshit anyway. Medical discharge from active combat operations doesn't mean we stick you in a supply closet to rot. That was temporary placement while we figured out what to do with you. Well, now you've figured it out for us. He paused. How's your shoulder, honestly? Functional, sir. Some limitation in extreme extension, but operational within normal parameters. Could you pass a full DevGru physical? The question hung in the air. Emma's heart rate kicked up for the first time all night. I don't know, sir. Then let's find out. You're being transferred, effective immediately, to Naval Special Warfare Development Center. You're going to undergo a complete medical evaluation by doctors who actually specialize in combat injuries, not paper pushers who check boxes. If they clear you, and I mean actually clear you for combat operations, we'll talk about reinstatement. If they don't, we'll find you a position that uses your skills properly. Training, curriculum development, maritime rescue protocol, something better than counting inventory. Emma's throat tightened. She'd spent 6 months believing her career was over. Sir, don't thank me yet. You've still got the Branson situation to resolve. And depending on how that investigation goes, none of this might matter. But Captain Mitchell's running point on that, and she strikes me as someone who doesn't tolerate bullies. He paused. Put her back on. Emma handed the phone to Mitchell. Sir? Mitchell listened for 2 minutes, her expression unreadable. Understood, sir. I'll have the preliminary report on your desk by 0800 tomorrow. She hung up and looked at Emma. Sit down, petty officer. Emma sat. Mitchell remained standing.
Admiral Hendricks is giving you a lifeline.
But that lifeline depends on my investigation showing what I think it's going to show. That Branson committed assault, and you responded appropriately.
Mitchell leaned against her desk. So, I'm going to ask you something, and I need complete honesty. Did you hit him harder than necessary? Emma met her eyes. No, ma'am. I struck him exactly as hard as required to incapacitate him without causing permanent damage. A controlled palm-heel strike to the mental protuberance, angled to maximize cranial rotation while minimizing cervical spine risk. He'll recover fully in 6 to 8 weeks. You calculated all that in the half-second before you hit him? No, ma'am. I calculated it years ago during combatives training. Tonight, I just executed. Mitchell studied her. You know what scares me about you, Daniels? Not your skills, not your combat record. The fact that you can turn violence into mathematics and execute it without hesitation.
Would you prefer I'd done nothing while he assaulted me, ma'am?
No, I'd prefer we lived in a Navy where you didn't have to make that choice.
Mitchell pushed off the desk. But we don't. So here's what happens next. I'm interviewing every witness. I'm pulling Branson's personnel file, and I'm going to document every single complaint that's been filed against him over the past 5 years. Then, I'm going to write a report that makes it very clear who the actual problem is in this command. There was a knock on the door. Mitchell called out, "Enter." Chief Reed stepped in, followed by Webb and Cortez. All three looked like they'd been through a war. Reed spoke first. "Ma'am, we need to talk about Lieutenant Commander Branson." Mitchell crossed her arms. "I'm listening." Webb stepped forward. "Captain, I was there when he dumped the water on Daniels. I witnessed the whole thing. And I need to state for the record that it was unprovoked assault." He orchestrated it deliberately, brought witnesses, made it a show. He wanted to humiliate her publicly. Cortez nodded. "I tried to stop him. He ordered me to stand down, said we were all going to learn a lesson about respect." "And did you?" Mitchell asked. "Learn a lesson about respect?" "Yes, ma'am," Webb said quietly. "I learned that respect has nothing to do with rank or gender or how loud you talk. I learned it has everything to do with competence and courage. And I learned that I've been complicit in a culture of harassment by staying silent." He looked at Emma. "Petty Officer Daniels saved 8 lives tonight, using skills I didn't know she had. Skills I should have known she had if I'd bothered to look past Branson's bullshit. That's on me." Mitchell's expression softened slightly. "What you just said. All 3 of you willing to testify to that under oath?" "Yes, ma'am," they said in unison. "Good. Because I'm convening a formal Article 32 hearing tomorrow morning. Branson's being investigated for assault, harassment, and conduct unbecoming. And you 3 are going to tell the investigating officer exactly what you just told me." Reed cleared his throat. "Ma'am, there's something else. I pulled Branson's training records going back 3 years. The cold water evolution that went wrong tonight? It was the same plan he ran 18 months ago. That time, 2 candidates were hospitalized with severe hypothermia. The incident was logged but never investigated because the candidates recovered. Daniels tried to warn him this morning that the plan was dangerous. He ignored her. 8 kids almost died because of his pride." Mitchell's jaw clenched. "Get me those records, and someone find out if those hospitalized candidates ever filed complaints." "Already did, ma'am," Reed said. "They tried. Branson convinced them it would hurt their careers, said they needed to be tougher. Both of them dropped out of training within a month." The room went silent. Mitchell walked to her window and stared out at the darkened training grounds. When she spoke, her voice was tight with controlled anger. "How long has this been going on? How many candidates has he broken? How many instructors has he driven out? How many sailors has he abused while I sat in this office processing paperwork and assuming everything was fine?
Ma'am, you can't blame yourself for, Webb started.
Yes, I can. This is my command, my responsibility. And I let a predator operate freely because I was too busy managing up instead of managing down. She turned back. That ends now. Tomorrow morning, Branson is relieved of all training responsibilities pending investigation. Lieutenant Webb, you're taking over his duties as senior instructor. Chief Reed, you're running cold water protocols from now on, with input from Petty Officer Daniels on equipment and safety standards.
Webb blinked.
Ma'am, I don't think I'm qualified to. You just told me you learned a lesson about respect and competence tonight. Prove it. Show me you can run training that builds warriors instead of breaking sailors.
Mitchell looked at Emma. And you? I don't care what Admiral Hendricks said about transfers. Until that medical evaluation happens, you're our maritime rescue subject matter expert. I want you reviewing every cold water protocol we have. I want safety recommendations. I want equipment upgrades. And I want you to train these instructors how to do it right. Ma'am, I'm still facing an assault investigation. You're facing a formality. The investigation will show what we all know. Branson committed assault, and you defended yourself. It'll take 72 hours to make it official. Until then, you're on restricted duty, which means you stay on base and keep your head down. But restricted doesn't mean useless. Work with Reed and Webb. Make sure this never happens again.
Cortez shifted uncomfortably. Captain, what about the candidates who witnessed everything? They're going to talk. By tomorrow morning, everyone on this base will know Daniels is DevCrew. Let them talk, Mitchell said flatly. The truth is out. We can't put it back. What we can do is control the narrative. As of right now, the official story is this. Petty Officer First Class Emma Daniels is a decorated naval special warfare operator on medical recovery assignment. She defended herself against assault, then risked her life to save 8 candidates from a botched training evolution. She's a hero, not a criminal. Anyone who says otherwise answers to me. Clear? Yes, ma'am. Mitchell checked her watch. It's 2300 hours. You've all had a long night. Get some sleep. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. She paused. Dismissed. Except you, Daniels. The 3 men filed out. Emma remained seated. Mitchell sat down heavily behind her desk. For the first time that night, she looked tired. You know what keeps me up at night? Knowing I almost lost 8 kids because I trusted the wrong officer. Knowing I had one of the most capable operators in the Navy counting bullets in my supply cage while a mediocre bully ran my training programs. She looked at Emma. How did you stay quiet for 3 weeks? Orders, ma'am. And honestly, I've endured worse. Branson's harassment was annoying, not dangerous. I could handle it. You shouldn't have had to. With respect, ma'am, every woman in the military has handled worse at some point. We calculate the cost of fighting back versus the cost of staying quiet. Usually, staying quiet is cheaper. And tonight? Tonight the math changed. Lives were at risk. Staying quiet would have cost 8 casualties. So I spoke up, got punished for it, and then proved my point by saving everyone anyway. Emma's voice was matter-of-fact. It's not personal. It's just how the system works. Mitchell shook her head. That's the most depressing thing I've heard all day, and I spent 2 hours on the phone with JAG lawyers. It's reality, ma'am. Then we change reality, starting with this command, starting tomorrow. Mitchell pulled out a legal pad and started writing. I'm documenting everything, every detail of Branson's harassment, every failure in our training protocols, every systemic issue that let this happen, and I'm sending it up the chain with a recommendation for a complete cultural review of NSW training commands. Emma watched her write. Ma'am, Can I ask you something? What? Why are you doing this? You could sweep it under the rug, write Branson's assault off as an accident, transfer me out quietly, protect your command's reputation. Mitchell stopped writing and looked up. Because I'm 52 years old, and I've spent 26 years in a Navy that told me I couldn't do half the things I ended up doing. I've been harassed, dismissed, underestimated, and passed over for promotion because of my gender more times than I can count. And I survived by keeping my head down and outworking everyone around me, just like you did. She leaned back. But you know what I learned? Surviving isn't enough. If we just survive and stay quiet, nothing changes. The Bransons of the world keep abusing people. The systemic problems keep crushing talented sailors. And women like you end up counting inventory instead of training the next generation. She stood up and walked around the desk. So I'm not sweeping this under the rug. I'm blowing it wide open. Because 8 candidates lived tonight, because you refused to stay in the box Branson tried to put you in. And I'll be damned if I'm going to punish you for that. Emma felt something tight in her chest loosen. Thank you, ma'am. Don't thank me. Thank yourself. You earned this. Mitchell extended her hand. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Emma shook her hand and stood to leave. At the door, she paused. Ma'am, those 2 candidates from Branson's previous cold water incident, the ones who dropped out, do you have their names? Why? Because they deserve to know that speaking up would have mattered, that their complaints could have prevented tonight's near disaster. Maybe they need to hear that it wasn't their fault for staying quiet. It was the system's fault for not listening. Mitchell smiled. It was small, but genuine. I'll get you their contact information. You can tell them yourself. Emma nodded and walked out into the California night, where 8 rescued candidates were being released from medical with warming instructions and mandatory bed rest, where instructors were whispering about the supply clerk who turned out to be a legend, and where somewhere in a hospital room, Lieutenant Commander Branson was learning that consequences delayed are not consequences avoided. The next morning would bring investigations and testimony and the slow grinding wheels of military justice. But tonight, for the first time in 6 months, Emma Daniels felt like herself again. The Article 32 hearing convened at 0800 hours in a conference room that smelled of industrial cleaner and bad coffee. Emma sat at a table with a JAG lawyer assigned to her case, a sharp-eyed lieutenant commander named Sarah Chen, who'd spent the previous evening reviewing every piece of evidence like she was preparing for a Supreme Court argument. Branson sat across the room with his own lawyer, his jaw wired shut, communicating through a notepad. The investigating officer, a stern-faced captain named Morrison from Naval District Southwest, presided from the head of the table. Morrison opened the proceedings. This is a preliminary hearing to determine whether charges of assault against Petty Officer First Class Emma Daniels are warranted. Lieutenant Commander Branson alleges that Petty Officer Daniels struck him without provocation, causing serious bodily injury. Petty Officer Daniels claims self-defense. We'll hear testimony from all witnesses and examine the evidence. He looked at Branson's lawyer. Call your first witness. The defense called Chief Cortez. He took the stand looking like he hadn't slept. Branson's lawyer, a civilian attorney named Rothman who specialized in military cases, stood up. Chief Cortez, you were present when the alleged assault occurred. Tell us what you saw. Cortez took a breath. I saw Lieutenant Commander Branson dump a bucket of ice water on Petty Officer Daniels. Then I saw her strike him once. He fell and lost consciousness. Did Petty Officer Daniels say anything before striking him? Any warning? No, sir. So she attacked without warning? Objection, Chen said. Leading the witness. Morrison nodded. Sustained. Rephrase. Rothman smiled. Chief Cortez, from your perspective, Did the response seem proportional to the provocation? Cortez looked directly at Branson. Sir, I've been a SEAL for 16 years. I've served in combat zones on 4 continents, and what I saw wasn't an attack. It was a textbook defensive response to an assault. Lieutenant Commander Branson physically assaulted Petty Officer Daniels with freezing water in front of multiple witnesses. He did it deliberately. He did it to humiliate her. And when she defended herself with precisely the amount of force necessary to stop the assault, he got exactly what he deserved. The room went silent. Rothman's smile faded. You're saying you believe the lieutenant commander deserved to have his jaw broken? I'm saying he deserved consequences for assaulting a subordinate. The fact that those consequences came immediately instead of months later through official channels doesn't make them less justified. No further questions, Rothman said tightly. Chen stood. Chief Cortez, you testified that Lieutenant Commander Branson's actions were deliberate. Can you elaborate? He brought an audience. He wanted witnesses. He told us we were going to learn a lesson about respect. This wasn't spontaneous. It was premeditated humiliation. Did you try to stop him? Cortez's face darkened. I tried. He ordered me to stand down. I complied. That's on me. I should have done more. Thank you, Chief. Next came Lieutenant Webb. He testified to the same facts, but added something new. This wasn't the first time I'd seen Lieutenant Commander Branson use humiliation as a training tool. 3 months ago, he made a female logistics officer do push-ups in the rain because she questioned his supply requisition timing. 6 months before that, he forced a junior instructor to stand in ice water during a safety briefing because the instructor suggested updating cold water protocols. There's a pattern. Rothman tried to discredit him. Lieutenant Webb, isn't it true that you have a personal relationship with Captain Mitchell and might be biased in favor of the command's position? No, sir. I have a professional relationship with Captain Mitchell. What I have is a guilty conscience for enabling Branson's behavior by staying silent. I'm biased in favor of the truth. The 4 candidates testified next. All of them told the same story. Unprovoked assault, precise defensive response, no excessive force. Martinez, the youngest, added something that made Morrison lean forward. Sir, I need to say something. After Petty Officer Daniels hit Lieutenant Commander Branson, she immediately checked his pulse and assessed his injuries. She told us exactly what medical care he'd need. She didn't gloat. She didn't celebrate. She just did what was necessary and moved on. That's not the behavior of someone who wanted to hurt him. That's the behavior of a professional who eliminated a threat. When the candidates were excused, Morrison called a 30-minute recess. Emma sat in the hallway with Chen. How do you think it's going? Better than expected. The witnesses are solid. But Rothman's going to argue that regardless of provocation, you had alternatives. Walking away, filing a complaint, de-escalating verbally. He'll say you chose violence. I chose to stop an assault in progress. I know, but a good defense attorney can twist that. Be ready. When they reconvened, Rothman called his only witness, a psychiatrist who testified about the effects of traumatic brain injuries and the permanent damage caused by strikes to the jaw. Chen cross-examined. Doctor, is it your professional opinion that Petty Officer Daniels intended to cause permanent damage? I can't speak to her intent. But you can speak to the precision of the strike, can't you? The medical reports show a hairline fracture, not a shattered mandible, a concussion, not a traumatic brain injury. If Petty Officer Daniels, a trained special operations combatives expert, had wanted to cause permanent damage, wouldn't she have struck harder? Struck differently? Struck multiple times? The psychiatrist hesitated. Possibly. In fact, isn't it true that the strike showed remarkable restraint for someone with her training? I suppose that's one interpretation. Thank you, Doctor. Then Chen called her own witnesses.
She started with Captain Mitchell, who testified about Branson's personnel file, 3 previous complaints of gender-based harassment, 2 incidents of dangerous training decisions, multiple counseling sessions that resulted in no behavior change. Captain Mitchell, in your professional opinion, did Petty Officer Daniels have reason to fear escalation from Lieutenant Commander Branson? Absolutely. His pattern of behavior showed progressive escalation. Verbal harassment became public humiliation. Public humiliation became physical assault.
Without intervention, I believe it would have continued escalating. And did Petty Officer Daniels file complaints during the 3 weeks she endured his harassment?
No.
Why not?
Because she was under orders to maintain a low profile due to the classified nature of her background. She couldn't risk drawing attention to herself. So, she was trapped between 2 impossible choices: endure abuse or violate operational security. Objection, Rothman said. Speculation. Withdrawn. Chen turned to Morrison. I'd like to call my final witness. Petty Officer First Class Emma Daniels. Emma took the stand. Chen approached her. Petty Officer Daniels, when Lieutenant Commander Branson poured ice water on you, what went through your mind? That I was being assaulted and needed to stop it. Why didn't you just walk away? Because assault doesn't stop when you walk away. It stops when you make it clear there are consequences.
Did you intend to seriously injure Lieutenant Commander Branson?
No, ma'am. I intended to incapacitate him with the minimum force necessary. A palm-heel strike to the mandible is a standard defensive technique designed for precisely that purpose. If you'd wanted to cause serious harm, what would you have done differently? Emma looked directly at Morrison. Sir, with respect, I'd rather not detail advanced combat techniques in an open hearing, but I can say that if my intent had been serious injury, Lieutenant Commander Branson wouldn't have woken up with just a fractured jaw. Chen nodded. Thank you. Your witness, Counselor. Rothman stood. Petty Officer Daniels, you claim you were under orders to maintain a low profile. Yet you assaulted a superior officer in front of 6 witnesses. That doesn't sound low profile to me. The low profile directive was superseded by the immediate threat. Threat? A bucket of cold water is a threat? Assault is a threat, sir.
Whether it's delivered with a bucket or a fist doesn't change the fundamental violation.
But you could have reported it through proper channels.
I could have. And while I was filling out paperwork, Lieutenant Commander Branson would have continued his pattern of harassment and dangerous training decisions. 8 candidates would have died in the water the next night because I stayed quiet instead of proving his incompetence. Rothman's eyes narrowed. You're saying you knew candidates would be endangered? I warned him that morning in the briefing. He dismissed my concerns and punished me for speaking up. Then his training plan nearly killed 8 sailors, exactly as I predicted. So yes, sir, I knew. And I was proven right. No further questions. Morrison called for a 1-hour recess to review the evidence. Emma waited outside with Chen. You did well in there, Chen said. Doesn't feel like it. That's because you're used to missions with clear outcomes. This is different. This is the legal system eating itself. But the facts are on our side. 63 minutes later, they were called back in. Morrison stood. After reviewing all testimony and evidence, I'm making my recommendation to the convening authority. The evidence clearly shows that Lieutenant Commander Branson committed assault against Petty Officer Daniels. Her response, while forceful, was legally justified self-defense. The charges against Petty Officer Daniels are dismissed. Emma felt Chen's hand on her shoulder, squeezing. However, Morrison continued, looking at Branson,
I'm recommending a full investigation into Lieutenant Commander Branson's conduct. The pattern of harassment, the training safety violations, and the assault itself constitute conduct unbecoming an officer. Additionally, I'm recommending he be relieved of all training duties immediately and face potential charges under UCMJ Articles 93, 128, and 133. Branson's face went pale. Morrison turned to Emma. Petty Officer Daniels, you're cleared to return to duty. The restriction is lifted. The hearing adjourned. Emma walked out into California sunshine feeling like she'd been holding her breath for 3 days. Webb was waiting outside with Cortez and Martinez. How'd it go? Webb asked. Charges dismissed. And Branson? Under investigation, probably facing a court-martial of his own. Webb nodded slowly. Good. That's good. He looked uncomfortable. Listen, Daniels, I wanted to say, you already said it in your testimony, Lieutenant. We're good. No, we're not. I stood there and watched him humiliate you. I laughed. I was complicit. And no testimony in a hearing changes that. Emma looked at him. You're right. It doesn't change it. But what you do next does. You're running training now. Make it better. Make it fair. Make sure the next woman who shows up here doesn't have to break someone's jaw to be taken seriously. I will. I promise. Martinez stepped forward. Ma'am, can I ask you something? What is it, candidate? Will you train us? The guys you rescued, we've been talking. We want to learn from you. Real maritime survival. The stuff that actually works. Emma glanced at Webb. He nodded. Captain Mitchell already approved it. You're teaching a 4-week intensive on cold water rescue and survival. Starts Monday. If you want it. I want it. 3 days later, Emma stood in a medical examination room at Naval Medical Center San Diego. A team of orthopedic specialists had spent 2 hours putting her through the most comprehensive physical evaluation she'd ever endured. The lead surgeon, a commander named Dr. Patricia Voss, reviewed the scans on a lightboard. Your shoulders healed better than I expected, Voss said. The bone remodeling is excellent. Range of motion is nearly full. Strength testing shows you're at 93% of baseline. Is that enough? Emma asked. For what? For DevGru operational status. Voss turned. That's not my call. But medically? Yes. You're cleared for full combat duties. Whatever restrictions were placed on you after your initial injury are no longer warranted. Emma felt something unlock in her chest. You're sure? I'm looking at your scans right now. Your shoulder is sound. You're 26 years old and in peak physical condition. There's no medical reason you can't return to active special operations. Voss smiled. Whoever put you on a desk clearly didn't understand how well the human body can heal when you actually let it. That afternoon, Emma received orders. Report to Naval Special Warfare Development Group, Dam Neck, Virginia. Medical clearance, approved. Operational status, active. She was going back. Before she left Coronado, there was one more thing to do. She met with the 2 former candidates who'd been hospitalized during Branson's previous cold water disaster. Their names were Ryan Foster and James Chen, no relation to her lawyer. They'd both left the Navy after dropping out of BUD/S, both carrying the weight of feeling like failures. They met at a coffee shop off base. Foster was working construction now. Chen was in grad school. We heard what happened, Foster said. About Branson. About you. I wanted you to know something, Emma said. What happened to you wasn't your fault. You tried to report it. The system failed you, not the other way around. Chen shook his head. We should have pushed harder. If we had, maybe those 8 guys wouldn't have been in danger. Or maybe Branson would have buried you deeper and nothing would have changed. You can't know. What you can know is that your experience mattered.
The documentation of your incident was part of what brought him down. You contributed to that, even if it took 2 years to matter. Foster looked down at his coffee.
Does it get easier? The feeling like you failed?
No, Emma said honestly.
But it gets quieter. And eventually, you realize that one failure doesn't define you. What defines you is what you do after.
They talked for another hour. When Emma left, both men seemed lighter somehow. She'd given them something they hadn't had before. Permission to stop carrying Branson's failures as their own. Her last day at Coronado, Emma stood in the training facility watching Webb run a cold water drill. The candidates were better equipped now. Proper thermal suits, updated safety protocols, constant monitoring. Webb ran it with discipline, but without cruelty. Captain Mitchell found her there.
Second thoughts about leaving?
No, ma'am. Just making sure the changes stick.
They will. Webb's a convert. Nothing more zealous than a reformed enabler. Mitchell handed her a folder. Your official transfer orders. And something else. A letter for your personnel file. A commendation for the rescue operation. It won't erase what happened with Branson, but it puts the truth in writing. Emma took it. Thank you, ma'am. Don't thank me. You earned it. You earned all of it. Mitchell paused. Can I give you some advice? Off the record? Of course. When you get back to DevGru, don't hide anymore. Don't make yourself small.
Don't let them put you in a box, because it's easier to manage you that way. You've got skills most operators will never have. Use them. Loudly.
That's not really how Tier 1 units work, ma'am. We're supposed to be invisible.
Invisible in operations, yes, but not invisible in your own command. Not to the people who need to see what you're capable of. Mitchell smiled. You showed everyone here what happens when competence gets pushed into a corner. Show them what happens when it's given room to run. 6 months later, Emma stood in front of a new class of DevGru candidates at Dam Neck. She was running a specialized training block on high-risk maritime rescue in contested environments.
Before we start, she said, I want to tell you a story. Last year, I was medically retired from active operations. I spent 6 months in a supply cage counting inventory, being harassed by an officer who thought I didn't belong in the Navy at all. He called me weak. He poured ice water on me in front of an audience to prove it.
The candidates listened, riveted.
I broke his jaw. Then I saved 8 hypothermic candidates from freezing to death in the Pacific, using skills he didn't know I had. Not because I wanted to prove him wrong, though that was satisfying, but because when the mission parameters change, you change with them. You adapt, you execute, you survive.
She paused.
This course is going to push you harder than anything you've experienced. Not to break you, to prepare you.
Because someday, somewhere, you're going to be in an impossible situation with no backup and no good options, and the only thing that'll save you, and the people depending on you, is your ability to adapt and execute under pressure. She looked at their faces, young, determined, scared, brave. We start in the water in 10 minutes. If you can't handle cold, you're in the wrong class. If you can't handle being uncomfortable, you're in the wrong career. But if you can handle both and stay sharp enough to think through the pain, then maybe you're exactly where you belong. Questions? One candidate raised his hand. Ma'am, is it true you knocked out a lieutenant commander with 1 hit? Emma smiled. That's not the lesson, candidate. The lesson is that I spent 3 weeks being dismissed and underestimated before anyone realized who I was. Don't wait for permission to be competent, and don't ever let someone else's limitations define your capabilities.
Yes, ma'am.
Good, now gear up. We're going swimming. That evening, Emma received an email from Martinez. He'd graduated BUD/S. He was headed to SEAL Team 3. The email was short. Thank you for showing me what a real operator looks like. I won't forget. She replied, You survived cold water and bad leadership. The rest is easy. Make them remember you. Weeks turned to months. Emma's shoulder held up. Her evaluations were flawless. She ran rescue operations in the Arctic, the Mediterranean, the South China Sea. She trained hundreds of operators. She rewrote protocols. She saved lives. And late at night, when she lay in her rack, she thought about Lieutenant Commander Branson, about his wired jaw and his shattered career, and the pattern of abuse that finally caught up with him. He'd been court-martialed, dishonorably discharged, stripped of rank and pension. Last she heard, he was working security at a shopping mall in Ohio. She didn't feel sorry for him. But she didn't feel triumphant either. She just felt like the scales had balanced, like the universe had corrected itself, like consequences had finally found their proper target. 2 years after the incident, Captain Mitchell was promoted to Rear Admiral and put in charge of all NSW training commands. Her first official action was implementing a zero-tolerance harassment policy with mandatory reporting and independent investigation protocols. Webb became the senior training officer at Coronado. He ran the toughest, fairest BUD/S classes in the program's history. Dropout rates fell. Injury rates fell. The quality of graduating operators went up. The culture changed. Slowly, imperfectly, but it changed. And at the center of that change was a story that got told and retold in barracks and briefing rooms and training facilities across the Navy. The story of a supply clerk who turned out to be one of the deadliest operators in naval special warfare, who endured 3 weeks of harassment, defended herself with one perfect strike, then saved 8 lives in conditions that should have killed everyone involved. The story became legend. The legend became a lesson. And the lesson was simple. Respect isn't given because of rank or gender or how loud you talk. It's earned through competence, courage, and the quiet refusal to accept anyone's limitations but your own. The strongest warriors aren't always the ones who shout the loudest. Sometimes they're the ones you never see coming. The ones who do the work while others take credit. The ones who save lives while others count glory. Emma Daniels never asked to be a symbol. She just wanted to do her job. But sometimes doing your job with excellence in the face of opposition becomes revolutionary all by itself. And sometimes, in the cold, dark waters where others see only death, the right person with the right skills can pull everyone back to shore and prove that strength has nothing to do with arrogance and everything to do with the will to act when action matters most. That's not just survival. That's legacy.